Hello everyone, welcome to another video. My name is Obi Hussain and today we are going to have a look at 5 ways to improve pronunciation. Right, so let me share my screen first. Right, so keep in mind that pronunciation is obviously a very important criteria that you will need to meet in your exam, and that contributes marks to everywhere, because speaking, as you know, contribute marks to your listening, to your reading, and they are also dependent on your content, but content is directly dependent on your pronunciation. So it is absolutely imperative that you understand the correct intonations, the correct reading techniques, the correct way of pronouncing words, clarity, and focusing on sentence structures, right? So let's have a look at what we can do. So we'll break down based on individual tasks and talk a little bit about how you can improve your pronunciation over these certain tasks. Okay, so the first one, obviously, as you know, in speaking is your read aloud, right? So in read aloud, in order to have a clear pronunciation. Now remember that based on Pearson's guideline, okay, pronunciation refers to how clearly you are saying or enunciating the vowels and the consonant sounds, all right? So it means that you have to make sure that the vowels and consonant sounds that you're producing are readily or clearly understandable by the regular speakers. And then remember one thing, that different national and both international pronunciation are considered, all right? So it's not that if you have a separate accent from a different person, it will not be assessed properly. They do have separate system to incorporate national and both international speakers of the language, all right, as long as clarity is there. Now that's the most important aspect. So clarity, will break it down how to improve on clarity, and then the other aspect that we will talk about is loudness. So loudness also obviously helps with your pronunciation score, because the computer captures based on what you have said. So the headset or the microphone that you're speaking into, you need to be loud enough for it to capture what you're saying. Again, the keywords are loud enough, not loud as much as you want, all right? So the clarity issue is definitely what we're going to look at now, and then we're going to cover a little bit of part of the loudness, all right? So tone, emphasizing different words, is such an important tool in making sure your words are clear, all right? So whenever you're doing speaking, remember to have intonation, all right? Remember to add tone to it. Remember to emphasize on words. Generally, students get confused with what you will intonate, right, or emphasize. Again, emphasize basically means when you want something important to stand out, you sort of raise the level of your volume and then decrease it for the other ones that are not so important, all right, like how I'm doing it. Now, intonation is something that brings tone into your speaking, and it makes your words clear. Now, again, remember that it's computerized test, okay? So tone is not really something that the computer is trying to understand. The reason why we emphasize on the tone or the emphasis is because so that your words are separated. You have word separation, and the words have been enunciated clearly, all right? So what words should you emphasize on? Generally, plural words, past tense connectors, helping verbs, all right? Then reading. Now that's another impact that has on your score. Now, a lot of the times I've seen students that they just keep speaking with one constant breath. Now, when you do that, that obviously will have a significant impact on your overall score, because at the end of you're almost running about, when you're about to run out on your breath, the issue is going to be that you're not clear in reading the words that you're about to finish. So what happens is that it sort of has that effect on your speaking, where the last part of that sentence where you try to finish it in one breath is not really clear, and you're missing out a whole sentence with a lot of keywords or content words. So you need to keep that in mind, that breathing and using the technique of breathing and breathing in and breathing out is super, super important. All right. Now, generally, we take pauses in between punctuations. Remember that. And that's where you breathe in, breathe out. That's why the commas are there. That's why the full stops are there in sentences. So you need to utilize those commas and full stops in order to make sure that your clarity is there. All right. Now, stress, rhythm, and intonation, this is what we've been talking about. So these are the tone, Remember, breathing, stress, rhythm, and intonation. These are the 5 elements that we will focus on. All right. Now, intonation, we've already talked about it. So generally, you have a standard level of volume, and then you increase your volume to emphasize something that's important, and then sort of slow it down for something that you do not really think is important. All right. So obviously, that creates that frequency measurement that is so important for your speaking score, and that is how you create intonation. Now, again, remember it's computer-based, so your intonation really doesn't have to be exactly accurate. So your intonation is just something you can artificially add. And that's what we were talking about here. So intonate on words that are plural words, past tense. Don't overthink about what words you will need to intonate. All right? So that takes care of your intonation. Now, other thing is, please make sure you go through this list. This is such an important list, right? Usually we provide this in the classroom. So there are silent words. So these silent letters we don't really emphasize on them, okay? So for example, the first word, we don't say psycho, we say psycho. So P is silent. Same thing as receipt, we don't say receipt, okay? So these are some common mistakes that students make. So make sure that you go through this list of common words and understand what the correct pronunciation for them is, all right? Now, there's some examples over here. Not going to worry about that. Not going to look at repeat sentences for pronunciation, of course. We're just going to quickly jump into the tone part and content. So we've covered the clarity part, right? Now it's time to get into the loudness part. Okay. Now a lot of students start screaming into their headset or microphone. That's not the ideal way to respond. Your job is to speak at a volume where it is sufficient enough for the headset or the microphone to capture what you're saying. All right. Now, obviously, based on different environment, that changes. So this is the first thing that you'll need to know when you go into an exam. Analyze your surrounding, see if the room is loud or not. Then, based on that, test your headset. You increase your volume, record it, check whether it's capturing your voice or others' voice. And if it's capturing others' voice, that means your volume needs to be increased a little further. But if the room is quiet and in the center where you are doing the exam is a bit less noisy, obviously you do not have to speak at that same volume. So during the beginning stage of your exam, when you're about to start, make sure to test that headset and make sure that your volume level is sufficient so that the headset is capturing your voice. If there are sudden people background noises, don't stress about that. That's absolutely fine as long as it's capturing your voice clearly. Okay, so that's what is really important. So in order to improve your pronunciation, remember the 2 things. So first thing is your clarity. Clarity can be improved based on 5 things: intonation, tone, then breathing, then what else have we talked about? Then rhythm and the stress part, all right? And also making sure that silent words, we are aware of what are the silent words that we speak so that we don't have issues when we're reading the silent words, all right? And then loudness, obviously, as I've told you, loudness is related to your headset. So make sure, or your environment, and make sure. So this is the reason why a lot of students practice at home by themselves, but when they go to the exam, they don't really apply this technique, because at home you are practicing by yourself, noise level is not really high, and as a result you can go by just speaking at a very soft volume, but you can't apply that same scenario or same level of volume into your exam, because it will definitely be different. So make sure you understand the difference between those 2. Okay. The other thing is obviously adjustment of your microphone is really important. Make sure you know where to place them. Talk to your trainer for further information on mic placement. All right. So this will be all for clarity on pronunciation, on how to improve your pronunciation. Make sure you do a lot of practice on read aloud, read a lecture, describe image, and as well as repeat sentences, because these are the 4 very, very important tasks that you will need to obtain high scores, or if you perform well, it will help you set up a very good platform for the rest of your scores. Okay. So thank you guys for tuning into this video. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks.